I am the Senior Master at Blundell's, and I run the Oxbridge programme there. I have studied at both Oxford and Cambridge myself. I did my first degree at Oxford, and I did my teacher training at Cambridge. So I've seen it from both sides of the fence. Now, what I'm hoping to do today is to just explain to you a little bit about how Oxford and Cambridge, we call it Oxbridge for short, enter and choose their students. Let me begin. Firstly, what is it that makes Oxford and Cambridge different from other universities? Well, the first thing is that they're both world-class institutions. Between them, they have 150 Nobel laureates. Most of our British Prime Ministers have come from Oxford, so they're world-class institutions, obviously. The second thing is the college system. I will explain more about that a little bit later on. Third thing is the way they teach. Unlike other universities where they're being taught in large lecture halls, at Oxford and Cambridge it is very personal. You'll be being taught in groups of 1, 2 to 5 students. And therefore, the universities attract the leading academics who are teaching. When you're being taught, you're probably being taught by someone who is a world expert in the field that you're learning about. There is a slightly different application system for Oxford and Cambridge. There are more hurdles to jump over. And it is very, very competitive indeed. Last year we had 6 students who got themselves places at Oxford and Cambridge, and over the last 3-4 years we've had 4 or 6 going forward. This is from a school that is non-selective and only has 100 in a year, so we're very proud of that. Now, let me explain a little bit about how the university is set up. I'll do the whole slide and then you can. Everyone who goes is part of the university. It is not like other universities where you have just one big campus, because the academic departments or the faculties are spread throughout the cities. Everybody is also a member of a college. So if you're studying at Oxford and Cambridge, you belong to 3 things. Your academic department, where you'll do your work, the university itself, which doesn't actually exist as a place, and the college, which is the most important thing to you day to day. Now, the college is almost like a mini university. There will be only between about 300 and 500 students in a college. Some are very, very old, going back to the 12th century. Others are 1960s. The college is where you both live and learn. You will be based there for your supervisions or your tutorials, and your learning will be managed from within the college. So you've got your accommodations there, small group teaching is there, they will have libraries, they have social areas, they have the pastoral centre. That's probably the most well known, which is King's College in Cambridge, sort of Hogwarts. Now, the application process, I'm going to talk you through what happens, and then I'll take you through each of these in a little bit more detail. The first thing is you need to choose your course wisely. You need to make sure that you have the correct A-levels or IB for it. You will then choose a college, or you may elect to put it in an open application where for your subject the computer will allocate you to the college with the fewest applications. It's an early deadline because we started school in September at the end of the beginning of the academic year. By the 15th of October the UCAS applications have to be into the 2 universities. Then they will ask for extra written work from every student. That could be in the form of an aptitude test, which they will take in very early November, or it might be work that they ask you to send up to the university beforehand, or they might ask you to sit a test when you're actually at interview. Then they will invite probably 70–80% of those who have applied to an interview in December. Oxford and Cambridge will spend, on average, about 4 or 5 hours per applicant to decide who they're going to take. They take it very seriously indeed, because they're choosing the very top students in the country, and that is not only based on exam results, it's on their potential, how much further they're able to go. Exams are not enough. These are some of the subjects that you could choose at Cambridge, for example. These are the sciences, and These are the arts. So quite a range of subjects. It's really important to choose a subject that you're passionate about, that you really want to do. Now, this is St John's College in Cambridge, and that shows you the whole of the college. And as you'll see, you have some modern buildings, some very ancient ones, accommodation for students, and of course rooms where a lot of teaching and seminars and things like that take place. They're all arranged around these quads. In Oxford they call them quads, in Cambridge they call them courts. Now, starting at the beginning, because I'm helping people apply to Oxford and Cambridge, we will help our students choose the right A-levels, because if you have the wrong A-levels for a course, you'll get rejected straight off. We help them choose the right course, but that's really their decision. Explore the college options. I'll try and take them up to visit Oxford or Cambridge at least once or twice a year, so they have a chance to actually see some of the colleges for themselves. And then the next stage is to think about what Oxbridge are looking for in a student. They want academic ability. You have to be at the top of the tree academically. But
no.
They are looking for students who have the ability to go beyond, students who are interested, students who are creative, students who are passionate about the subject they want to study. They're looking for genuine subject interest. They want to see that you have a track record in being passionate about the subject that you've elected to study. And at Blundell's, I try and help our students start developing that from the age of 14 onwards. Some will change their mind as they grow up, and that's fine, because they're growing and developing as people, and their interests do sometimes change, and that's absolutely fine. Because if you're starting on a particular subject and you research it and you're really interested in it, and then you discover you are not interested, that's good, because it saves you a lot of wasted time later on. They're looking for your suitability to be taught in Oxbridge sort of a way. So, a question that has been asked at interview, which looks silly, but actually if you think of it isn't, is, so tell me about a banana. If you say, it's yellow, it's probably not the person they're looking for. An economist would give a very different answer to that question from a biologist. And they're looking for an interesting answer, someone who can think creatively. So, I'll tell you more about how they make the selection as we go a bit further into the talk. But they're looking for these academic-related qualities. They are not interested in your sports commitments, for example. They are looking for people. Oxford and Cambridge, the courses, the terms are only 8 weeks long. So you have a very intensive learning period, and you have to be able to learn quickly. Are you able to deal with competition, take risks, disappointment sometimes, meet challenges, study independently? That's very, very important that you can study independently. They want people who can think for themselves, not people who just tell you what you told them. So, how do they assess an application? Well, first of all, they look at your academic record. Now, for international students, sometimes they have only come in the sixth form, so there isn't much of an academic record going back further than that. Some international students have GCSEs, but they consider every applicant individually, so they will be looking, you know, if you let's imagine did GCSEs in 2 years learning the language as you went, they would take that into account. They look at all of these things. The academic record, personal statement, teacher's reference, the admissions assessments, those aptitude tests, written work where it's required, and the interview. Those are the things that they look at. I'm going to take and speak a little bit about some of these in a moment. The first is the personal statement, and it's a very difficult thing to do because you have to write about yourself, and if you're 16, that's difficult. And you have to say why you want to study the course. Why are you passionate about it? What have you done to show that? So you're looking at the relevant sorts of skills, the talents, the experience you've had that is relevant to that particular subject. And sometimes they will ask you about things that you have said in your personal statement. Reveal the depth of your independent study. And I spend at least 4 hours individually with each of our applicants just working on helping them get their personal statement right. I don't write it for them. It's their personal statement, not mine. But it is important that they're saying the right sorts of things. Now, the very best personal statements show a mind at work, the way the student is actually thinking. So, for example, I had a student who was wanted to study law at Oxford last year. He was passionate about law and very argumentative boy, and he had got work experience with barristers, with solicitors. He had organised a local judge and some local barristers to come into the school to coach the children in running a mock case. It's called a moot. That's quite an impressive thing to have done. But the trick is the use you make of it in the personal statement. It's a real waste to just say, I have organised a moot. I have got in a judge and some barristers and I have run this thing. Much cleverer to say, during the moot that I organised, then identify a point of law that was important in the trial and compare that with something he'd seen somewhere else in another piece of work experience, because it shows that he's thinking about what he's seeing and doing. And of these qualities, it'll show depth of interest, independent study, determination, all of those sorts of qualities that they're looking for. They are interested in not extracurricular activities, but supracurricular activities. Now, the difference between the two is extracurricular activities are things like, sport or whatever. Supracurricular activities are where you take your subject beyond the obvious. So, what can you do? Well, like that boy I described earlier, you can organise things that are subject related. You can undertake MOOCs or an EPQ. Do things that are not obvious. Let us imagine that you were a Ukrainian student, and we've had 2 that we've sent to Oxford and Cambridge in recent years, and one of them wanted to read business, and so wouldn't it be interesting in a personal statement to compare a Ukrainian business banking methodology with that you find in the UK? That would certainly be an application that they would remember, especially if you made intelligent observations on the difference between the two. There are things that I help them set up that will improve their profile. It's up to them to do it, but I will help where I can, because that's the point, that it's coming from them. So, for example, for medical students, I have helped them arrange dissections of various animals, and you will have the 6th form student who is teaching a group of 14-year-olds how to dissect an animal. That's great for communication skills, as well as enhancing their own understanding. The kids love it, but the rats don't. Then at chemistry, I help them arrange to use the spectroscopes and the advanced analytical equipment at our local university. And then they synthesized a chemical in their own time at school, and then we took it up to the university to see what we'd made. Now, when they're writing their personal statement, they won't just say that they have done this, but what they learnt from it and why it's interesting. The best thing, you tell your candidates is be interesting and interested. So, there are all sorts of things you can put into the personal statement. A book or a film, project, trip, how I've explored the subject, relevant interests. These are the things I've done on top of my schoolwork. This is where I tend to help them. So make the points you want to make. Be specific. Provide evidence for them. The next thing they will have to do are aptitude tests. Now, there's a limited amount you can do to prepare for those other than just practice them, because they are skills-based tests, not knowledge-based tests. But you can practice some of the skills, the essay writing skills that you need, or the thinking skills that you need. They are tests that test the way that you think. So my students for this year, they have just finished their personal statement, and as soon as they come back from half term, they'll be into the tests. So I've been helping them prepare, as you can imagine. Now, there are many more applicants than there are places available. The very top candidates all look very similar. They've all got lots of A's and top academic. And so they use the interview. Everyone who gets a place will have gone through an interview. And they will have at least 2, maybe up to 6 interviews in the selection period, which is in December. They are intensely subject focused. So, for example, if you were going for, let's imagine, engineering, you may have an engineering problem that you have never seen before, and they want to see how you approach it and how you think your way through the problem. And they will give you the tools that you need to solve it. Then the question is, what use do you make of those tools? Intellectual tools, I mean. Any interview in any subject will start you on something that you know about, and then very gradually, but certainly, they will push you off the edge of what you know to see what you will do when you're trying to work with things you don't know about, but you're having to work it out. So, for example, in law, you may have a question, in a society made up of angels, do you need law? So you have to think that way, not just that way. There is no right answer to that question. They are interested to see how you approach it. Your worst candidates will just go yes or no. Your slightly better candidates will say, well, on the one hand, on the other, your best candidates will say something like, well, it's interesting you should ask that because it throws up this problem. So indeed, they're looking at for sort of thinking that isn't, they are not looking for you to show off what you know. They're looking to see how you think. And it is very much like a tutorial or a supervision at the university. That's the model that they follow. It's all about generating solutions to a problem, thinking creatively, thinking quickly, and the best preparation is to have practice interviews. And these don't have to be formal interviews. Quite often the best ones are just when you're talking to someone who's an expert in your subject about something that interests you. It interests them. They don't care whether your shoes are clean or how good your handshake is. They don't worry. So the best, at Blundell's we will get at least 3 or 4 practice interviews, sometimes more. At least 2 of those will be with people from outside the school that they have never met before. Sometimes the lecturers from Exeter University down the road. And I always make sure that they have met Oxford or Cambridge Don before they go up to their interviews so that they know that they're human, because they are. We spend time just trying to teach our students to think beyond the obvious, so that way a little bit. So to summarise, they're looking for engagement with your subject, and that's shown by the examples that you use, because you'll draw on your experience. Critical thinking and application of knowledge to an unfamiliar situation. The good students really enjoy their interviews because they've had an intense subject-focused discussion on an area that interests them. And if you come out feeling absolutely exhausted, wrung out, and as if you didn't get the right answers, you've probably done quite well. If you come out saying, yeah, nailed that one, you didn't. You missed the point. 1 in 5 applicants will get an offer, but you have to remember that those 5 applicants are not ordinary 5 applicants. It's self-selecting. They're all pretty clever because all of those applicants, or most of those applicants, you know what they're doing anyway, will be looking to get A star AA at very least if they're doing A-levels. Their standard offers will be A star A for sciences and A star AA for the humanities. As you can see, they've pitched those offers lower than most people will get because their average offer holders will achieve 3 A stars because they're motivated, interesting, clever people. So the thing you've got to ask yourself before you apply is, do you actually like the content of the courses? Some people prefer the content at other universities, and that's fine. If you have, and you're at the top end, give it a go. Now, the future prospects after Oxbridge are pretty good. Employers very much want those degrees because they know they will have creative, original people. The final thing to say is there's never any guarantee of getting in. There's no secret. There's no, you've just got to be a very, very good student and interested in going above and beyond. But it's worth it if you can get there because of the small group teaching. And Oxford and Cambridge are one of the very few universities in the world that are wealthy enough to make, I think it's about £4,000 a year loss on every student they take. So you're getting value for money. Thank you very much indeed.